wanted to write something that people would like, because I get tired of reading reviews that say about my books, there's no one likable in the books. No one's a good guy. I'm like, "Oh, they're good though. Like they're not." I want to answer back. I just think everyone's shades. I guess I don't think anyone's clean and neatly wholly good. Anyway, so it was a massive blow to the ego, and you think to yourself, well, I sold 2 books and now it's gone. If I had any sort of ability, it's somehow left my brain, and I've just written a massive turd and embarrassed myself in front of people who I greatly respect. What do I do? And it was in that midst of that, it was that week that I opened up all my old projects and I found Lacey, and I read that back and I thought, to hell with it. Even if I don't sell this, I'm going to finish this book. Even if no one wants it, I'm going to leave this profession riding out, the Western, riding out into the sunset on my horse with my head up, like I did the hardest thing I've ever created. I'm going to finish this book. And then, a year later, I had The Death of John Lacey finished, which was far and away the hardest thing I've ever written, and I think the most rewarding thing I've written as well.
So was it one of your earlier manuscripts? You mentioned earlier that you'd written about 4 or 5 manuscripts before you published To Become a Whale. Was that John Lacey, was that one of those?
No, it was just after Snake Island, and I'd written about 20,000. So it wasn't. Yeah, it was just a brand new thing, and I was just experimenting and playing. But no, those other 4 are in the. I don't know where they are. I remember parts of them.
You must know where they are. I mean, they'll be on a computer file somewhere.
No, they're dead. They died when an old computer died. If I could probably find emails with them attached somewhere, probably. Yeah. But no, I've left those books behind. They're dead.
So you're just happy to notch them up to, they'd say you got to write 1,000,000 words before you can, you start to improve it. Are you just notching that up as writing experience, or do you think you could ever be tempted to look, go back and dig them up and take a fresh look and think, look, can I breathe some fresh life into these?
Yeah. No, I think they're
dead. They're dead.
Yeah.
How bad were they?
I think they progressively got better. I'd actually written a Western. The second one I wrote was a Western, but it was much softer. It wasn't lazy at all. It took me a while to figure out my thing that I like, I guess. And that I needed to actually write the books. And I guess it's part of the fun of writing quickly is that I'm also I'm not very precious with the way my work. So in editing, I'll have an editor, softly approach me and say, oh, I'm not quite sure about this. You might need to rework this to fit. I'm like, yeah, it's gone. Doesn't matter. They're just words. I can make some more words. It's fine. So I think about that way with my old manuscripts.
When you say you write quickly, I mean, what sort of rate are we talking about here?
Oh, nothing insane. I think I had about 90 words per minute, 100 words per minute, maybe. Nothing insane. But I mean, if you go 90 to 100 words per minute, you can get 1,000 words in 10 minutes. You can knock off for the day. I'm not that quick, no, but if I did do a couple of those typing tests, and that's how quickly it came out. I put it down to, I used to play Counter-Strike when I was an elite gamer back in the day, when I was 16 years old and going to tournaments for esports tournaments of Counter-Strike, but we didn't have comms. Gamers nowadays have comms and all these great things. We just had to type out, there's a terrorist in their thing, while he's trying to fight bad guys. So that's where I learned to type quickly, I think.
I learned to type quickly at the police academy. We're actually taught on clunky old typewriters. We had this lady who was a typing teacher. Here we are, all these 17-year-old police cadets straight out of high school, clunking on these old typewriters, which had the keys liquid papered out. So you had to learn to touch type and set your fingers on the keys. And I still type like that on a modern day keyboard. So old habits stick with you.
See,
you can't type like that on an iPad, though. It doesn't work.
No, you can't. I say I'm sort of I'm one finger maybe two fingers. I couldn't change now if I wanted to. I learned like QWERTY, like finger positions in high school, but I'm very like this, but I'm just very quick at it.
I guess it's less about the typing speed, but more about how quickly can you formulate ideas and sentences and tell the story. I guess no matter what technical way you use to type and hit and strike those keys, it's
Yeah.
about getting the momentum.
Yeah, but I don't, it sounds stupid, but I don't see myself as creating ideas. I don't see myself as coming up with anything. It's almost like I'm noticing these things that are happening already. And I know that sounds probably pretty weird and pretentious, maybe, or silly to say, but if I'm making something up, it's not as good as my subconscious imagining it. And if I can get to the point where I'm not creating, but that I'm noticing, I think that makes the work a bit more interesting.
Yeah, may have said this in the past on another podcast, but basically I get this weird sort of sensation that when I'm having to pause at writing and go to the day job, I have this sort of like feeling that I've left the character standing there waiting, sort of waiting for me to carry on, and they're sort of like, you know, drumming their fingers,
where
going,
is he?
where the hell's Harry? You know, and so that's a sort of weird thing that I admit to.
Yeah. Yeah, it is like, it's like painting. It's like doing any other art, and it's, you know, I think it takes a long time. It takes a lot of words for you to figure out the way that you do it, to figure out the things that you like and interested in the particular choices that you make. But this is just what works for me. I've written books where I've overworked things, and I read them back and I don't feel like they're as authentic in their feelings as like that intuitive kind of writing that I really love to get to.
And just in terms of summarizing your three books, so a reader who is, so if they're reading the three books in chronological order, are they expecting a similar reading experience, or is there a shift or an evolution in the way your writing style across the three books?
I think that I've become a bit more ruthless. I think that I've become a bit more spare, and I don't, unless it's necessary, I aim not to write it. And I feel like To Become a Whale had a lot more. It was a lot more of a wandery kind of book, and I love that book, but it was a lot softer and it was a lot more wandery, and it had a lot more room to breathe. And I think that as I've gone, I've been much more ruthless with what I write, and so it's just bare bones. I think I'm more spare in my writing now. I think the main thing that plays out over all three of them, though, is my love of character, and especially my love of complex characters that aren't painted with one shade. So the father in To Become a Whale he loves his kid, but he's also born of this, World War II era, 1960s older father who doesn't know how to emotionally connect with his kid. He sees his kid as soft, and you got to toughen your kid up to get them to thrive in the world. And I have a lot of love for that guy, and he made some terrible choices. He would get drunk and he did all these sorts of things, but he made some good choices too. There were these little tender moments. And I hope that, if anything's the three books, I hope that that complex kind of character is something that's in all three.
There was one question I wanted to run with you, and I flagged this with you before we started tonight, in terms of your specific writing style for The Death of John Lacey, where when writing dialogue, you don't use quotation marks. Is that something that you've done? Because I haven't read your other two. Did you use the same technique for the other two as well?
No, that I only had that for Lacey, and in fact, the thing that I've just submitted, it has dialogue tags back in it. Mostly out of pure, there's like 9 or 10 different characters in certain scenes, and it just got way too messy, and I needed to be very clear about when dialogue was happening. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. It wasn't something that I feel like sometimes when you get asked about why you do something with your book, like there's been some grand, idea behind the thing you did, but I just felt like doing it. I just wanted to do it, and so one day I was writing, and I just wrote that way, and I was like, I like that. I like how it feels, and I can put on all of the different literary theories behind a lack of dialogue marks. It makes the reading feel more present. It makes it feel more sparse. Dialogue marks are a luxury. They clutter up the page. A good writer shouldn't need to use them. You should be able to distinguish it's a crotch, or a crutch, I should say. But I just felt like doing it.
And did it kind of really force you? They talk about a good writer should be able to distinguish between speakers by the tone and the way in which they speak. Did it force you to do that more?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It was a challenge. It was an absolute challenge, and I think it made me better at what I do. I used to have I was in a punk band called Sounds Like Chicken a long time ago, and yeah, we're in the top 50 worst band names in Australian history once in the age. So
Well done.
thank you. Yeah, it was an honor for a punk band. That's an honor.
Might have to add that to
But
your bio for next time.
it's in some bios, but you can download the album on Spotify if you're interested, guys. Sounds Like Chicken, like a cannonball to the ocean floor. If you like some screaming ska trumpets and yelling and punk, always, yeah, that's your thing.
Mhm.
But I played bass, and I don't know if you guys know anything about bass guitar, but the bass has 4 strings, but I had a 5-string bass. And so I had those extra low, heavy notes. And so whenever the section called for this big riffy bit where everyone was going to mosh and stuff like that, I would just drop down to that low B. And it became like this really easy, it was a cheat. And eventually the guitar player, Dave, said to me, well, you've got this beautiful Fender Jazz as 4-string. Why don't you try using that? Because I've got a better tone than the Music Man. And I was like, oh, but, I don't have those low end. And he said, well, just see what you can come up with. And the restriction of losing that low B end of the bass, the restriction caused me to be more inventive. I had to find the same feeling in a more interesting way. A lot of the time, it was just going up the octave, but it restriction forces you to be cleaner and more creative, I think. And so I'll often place restrictions on myself. I'll often do that. And so with Lacey, it was the dialogue marks. With this new book I've just finished writing a draft of and sent it through, it's the restriction was it all has to take place in one setting, one specific homestead. That's it. And so as soon as a person stepped off the homestead, I wasn't allowed to talk about them. And so any action that happened off it, I wasn't allowed to write about it. And it made me more creative. It made me come up with these solutions that I think make the book, hopefully, more engaging to read. So yeah, I'm a big fan of restriction. The dialogue thing, like I did it and I felt like it and I liked it, and no one pushed back on me on it.
Even the editor?
Everyone liked it. Everyone liked it, and I didn't get a word until the book came out. And then and I should have known this, there are a lot of people who do not like the lack of dialogue marks. There are, I think, a lot of readers who really love English language and spelling and punctuation and all those sorts of things. And that's not what I care about that much, but they really care about it. So I got a few negative comments about the lack of dialogue marks, not being able to track things. But I don't know, like Richard Flanagan and Tim Winton and Cormac McCarthy and Sally Rooney and all these people, like it is a much more, I think, a common thing nowadays to not have the dialogue marks. And I love reading books without them. It's a challenge.
And I was going to mention, you mentioned Cormac McCarthy, the classic The Road, and it's since been converted into a great movie as well. That was the first time I ever read a book where there weren't any dialogue tags. And initially I felt it was a bit of a hard read, but I very quickly got into it. And as you say, it's a different style of writing. And
Yeah.
once you get used to it and once your brain adjusts, you feel as a reader that it's quite flowing.
I love those textual things. Like to me, the lack of dialogue marks just feels more ancient. It feels more historic. It feels more like punctuation, sort of like running clean water, like it's a luxury, and these characters don't have those luxuries. There's this great novel called Blindness by an author named Jose Saramago. I'm pretty sure I read it a very long time ago, but it's a movie as well, actually, a very good movie. But essentially, there's this pandemic. It sweeps the whole world, and almost instantaneously, every single person on Earth goes blind. And then it becomes about, if we can't see each other, what sort of a person are we to each other if we can't see our actions and the impact of them? It's an incredible book. But the way it's written, and he does this, I think, but the way it's written is there's no breaks. There's no dialogue breaks. There's no paragraphs. It's just blocks of text.
Wow.
And it is very hard to read. And you have to sort of, the book sort of teaches you how to read it. But it is like this claustrophobic, difficult thing. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, I get it. I'm feeling the way the characters are feeling through a textual voice. I love that sort of thing. To me, it's really fun to read that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I do spend a lot of time. Well, a lot of the books that I read these days are audiobooks, and all of that's going to be lost.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And a lot of the audiobooks now are more immersive experiences. There's one I listened to a while ago. It's got Eric Benner in it. But it's like those old radio serials I used to listen to where there were sound effects and you could hear people's footsteps crunching on the gravel. And these more kind of more immersive performances rather than just, a textbook being narrated.
Yeah, I love that stuff. There's that George Saunders Lincoln in the Bardo, which I don't know whether you've read that, but it's written like a script. It's written like a play. It's a novel, but there's not a single piece of prose in it. It's written as a play. Characters talking to all these ghosts, talking to each other. But the audiobook is like all these very famous actors playing the different characters, and it's just a play in audio form, like Nick Offerman and Ben Stiller and all these different people. Really interesting textual choice. And that sort of stuff is really fun, I find. And I don't know, I'm a big fan of experimentation, I think. Although I haven't read Ulysses by James Joyce, and I would probably hurt my brain.
Hey, I just to kind of wrap up talking about your published novels, can you just tell us quickly about your publishing journey? So you talked about that, it was 10 years of work and writing. You had all these manuscripts that sort of in your words, sort of didn't go anywhere. But you got your break and you got your publishing contract with Allen and Unwin. Can you just quickly talk us through how did that come about? Did you go through you secured an agent first, and then what was the process that followed?
Yeah, I went in for the Vogel Award, which is Allen and Unwin run this award, but it's essentially a publishing contract with Allen and Unwin, $20,000. And you had to be under 35. And so I was 34 and I went into this thing. I was like, this is the last year, man. I'll either make or break it. And I broke it and I didn't win. But I got some feedback. I got some really valuable feedback from the judges. And later on, I actually learned that I had been longlisted, but that wasn't in the rejection slip I got. But it said, this is a moving story of boys and manhood and masculinity. And, it had this really beautiful writing about my book, which was really meaningful. And I said it did not quite reach the dramatic heights it was capable of or was reaching for. Yeah. Which I memorized. And so I did another, I was 9 years I'd been running this marathon. And I felt like that runner at the end of the marathon who's sort of tripping over and like trying to get across the finish line. That's how I felt. And so I was like, I'm just going to do a drama pass. And it actually unlocked this massive change in the book where at the start of the novel, the boy's mother has passed away and he's at her graveside. And it's after they've just buried her from a long illness. And so the big drama pass was that I realized the boy missed his mum, the father missed his wife, but the reader had no clue about her. And so I went back and wrote all these scenes to show the readers who this woman was and why she was missed. And there were a couple little other tweaks and changes, but then I was like, all right. And I sent it out to, I think, a couple of agencies. And then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, I was driving home and I didn't, you're not a policeman anymore. Hey, Jack. I didn't pick the phone up. I looked at the phone but I saw it was an email from an agency. And of course, I pulled over to read the email because I was very excited, actually. So I pulled over, read the email, but it simply said, "I love this. Are you represented yet? Can I give you a call in an hour?"
Nice.
And it was just on a dime. And so I raced home and I got really nervous and I hyped myself up and I got more nervous because I was like, okay, you got to be impressive. You got to sound really smart. You got to be down to earth. No, hang on a second. You got to be humble. No, you got to be funny. And I was trying to, it's like going out on a date, I guess. It's trying to make myself, but, Gabby, who is still my agent, she was really sweet and she just cut through all that garbage of a person instantly, Gabby. But she said, "No, I love this. This is great. We're going to shop it out. I've got some suggestions. I'll send you over a contract." And it was that. It was just that. And on a dime, it was from 9 years of no one caring at all about any of the words I'd created. And then all of a sudden, it was getting shopped to these publishers, and we were getting offers from multiple publishers. And it was, and it was just, you just sort of shake your head and you're like, what is this? It doesn't make sense that just whoop, one person. It was like one gate was open, and obviously I'd written, I hope, something good, but it just was very strange feeling to me that, a few days ago no one cared at all, and then all of a sudden people really cared about it. And that was then opened the doors, and then To Become a Whale was published through Allen and Unwin.
Yeah, congratulations. That's a really cool story. And after the success of getting the publishing contract for the first book, and then you found that your publishers were certainly supportive and open to taking you on for your next 2 books.
Yeah, but see, she did push back on that one that did get rejected, and
Yes.
and I didn't go to any other publisher simply because I love working with my publisher, Jane Polfreeman, and I trust her. And when she said no, I had to go, okay, I think it's good, but she's smarter than me. She is. So I think I had to be take a humble pill in that moment and sort of acknowledge, like, she's not, if this was going to be a good book, she would want it. If she took it to some other people and they all sort of agreed with her as well. So I have a really great deal of trust in my publisher. I don't really see myself going anywhere else, because she'll say that she'll push back on me. I know she will. And so will my agent. If things are not good, they're not going to put me out in public for me to get, publicly roasted on that sort of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of trust there for sure. It's hard fought for.
And as you say, you trust your publisher to understand the industry. Was it a case that it was just, look, it's just it was I'm not going to use the word failure, but
No, that's all right.
it didn't meet the requirements or the standards, or was it just a case of it was just the wrong manuscript at the wrong time?
It could be both, man. I don't know. Like, it could be both. I really, like what I was talking about earlier, I really do feel like I was writing with the wrong motivation. I think I was writing, instead to explore a question that I find interesting, I think I was writing to sell books. And I think it just rendered my stuff, I was writing in directions that maybe not my strength. And, I'm happy that I did it. I think I learned a lot about structure from writing that book as well. Who knows where that book's informing what I do now. But it was a big blow to the ego. It was a big blow to pick myself back up from. Yeah, I can't. It could have just been bad. I don't know. I have no clue. But I'm happy to move forward from it.
In your 9 years journey prior to being picked up by a publisher,
yeah.
And I'll appraise this as first with the fact that I'm self-published. So just in case you start bagging out self-published authors, but basically, is there any time did you think of actually going the self-published route?
No.
Any reason?
Again, like, I just don't. I'll go to a hairdresser and I'll say, just make me look as good as you think I can look. And they'll be like, what sort of haircut do you want? And I was like, you're the hairdresser. Like, I don't know. You're smarter at being a hairstylist than me. I don't know. And I admire people who self-publish because I just don't think I have the I don't know whether it's just confidence, but I don't think I know necessarily if I'm writing something that people will want or that the industry will want. And I've certainly never written something that I cared so deeply about that I wanted to, like, I didn't have a need to get it out in front of people. Like, I never believed in something so much. With Lacey, maybe I might have, if that didn't go. Like, that was like my heart and soul in that book. But it's funny, hey, like I can look back on that book that didn't go, that no one wanted, or sorry, my publisher didn't want, and it didn't take me long to pivot back and like give up caring about it. And that was the thing that sort of let me know, like, you weren't really in that one, you know.
Right,
like
yeah.
I was just like, that's fine. And I picked myself up pretty quickly. But with Lacey, I think maybe, I don't know what would have happened, but yeah, I'm proud I wrote that book. I might have gone that way then, maybe. I don't know.
No.
My hat's off to you though, man. Like, self-publishing, man, there's so much to that I don't have to worry about and do.
Oh, I hear you.
Book covers and quotes and like marketing. Like, I couldn't, that stuff's so hard.
Yeah.
Okay, well, can we move on now to some of your other projects and sort of sideline gigs that you've been very busy with? So, first of all, can you tell us about Ben's Book Club?
Yeah, really cool thing that we've sort of created with Overdrive, the people who run the Libby app. So this reading app in Australia that's available through a lot of libraries in Australia. But essentially, it's an ebook loaner that you can get on your phone. So it's like having a Kindle on your phone. You can borrow ebooks for free from the library. Really, really cool. And there's a few different companies that do it, but I think Libby are the best. I do. My wife's addicted to Libby. But this came up because Chris Hammer was doing a COVID book tour. And so there was lots of Zoom interviews with him, and Libby and the people who run Libby's marketing were getting people to interview him. And I know Chris. And so I was asked to interview him for the Brisbane sort of leg of his online tour. And so I did this interview because I know Chris, and we both had like a whiskey and we're just sort of sitting there, and it's like this, where we're just chilling out, having a chat. But the vibe of it was just, everyone really loved it. And something that I do is that I use the chat window, and I'll often talk to people in the crowd and sort of go, oh, this is a good question, Chris. You see what this person said here about your book? Why don't we talk about that? And that particular tone, I guess, was something that this guy named Malcolm, who's awesome, he saw that and he wanted to sort of start this online author interview platform once a month. It's a book club that meets in libraries, but it also meets in your lounge room on your phone while you're in your pajamas. So we meet once a month, and we have a book that we read each month. And essentially, the book becomes what's called, I think it's called non-exclusive loans. So that means that every single person in Australia can borrow that book at the same time. And normally, a book can only have one person borrow it at a time. But for that month, that book becomes unlocked and everyone can have it. So every single month that we've done the book club, the author that we feature is the biggest loaned ebook in Australia for that month, which is really cool. And I'm really happy, like, because getting people's books, you guys know how hard it is to get your books in front of people. So lots of people are learning these books and then talking about these books, meeting the author online. I'm really, really happy that I get to do it. And yeah, it's really fun. I just get sent books all the time in the mail, read the book, and get to talk to these really cool people. It's a really special part of my month. I'm doing one tomorrow. I don't know when this podcast will come out, but when we're recording, I have my questions all set up here on the screen for Lee Christine. I'm emailing. interviewing tomorrow.
And for every book that you review, does it also, part of that is to have the author available to do the interview? That's always part of it?
Yeah, and I don't organize any of it. It's all through DMCPR and Libby, and they all work. And it's especially tied in with Allen and Unwin, because Allen and Unwin is a publisher who believes in the platform and is really doing the non-exclusive loan copies and all these sorts of things. And we've actually got another publisher on board this year now, so we're getting a few more other authors from different publishers. But yeah, they take care of all that stuff. So literally, I just get piles of books up on my doorstep, and then I have to rock up for the interview once a month. I get to be the person in the chair. It's really cool. I'm really grateful that I get to do it.
And is that what sort of opened up your opportunities to conduct author interviews? Is it through this platform that sort of got you going with your interviewing of and again some high profile authors, Jane Harper to name one of many? Was this kind of what started you with the author interviews?
No, it wasn't I didn't start with it. No, I was doing author interviews for a while, but it was just simply at local bookstores. I hope I'm a friendly, nice person. I always try really hard, because I used to work, in audio visual and set up mics and stuff for events. So I always make a point to say thank you and acknowledge people by their names, and treat each person with respect. But I would just say, hey, listen, if there's any like interviews coming up, I'm very happy to do it. I've done a few of these now, and one of the first ones I did was actually Michael Connolly. If you know Michael Connolly, yeah.
Yeah, just a bit. Yeah, don't actually know him. Love
that. Well, I've interviewed him a few times now, but that particular one was very scary.
Yeah.
But that was one of the first ones, and I was at Riverbend Books, and they had his new book up on the shelf. And as I was buying stuff, and I know the people there because we've done some events, I was like, oh, I love Michael. And they're like, oh, really? Do you? Do you really? Do you really like Michael? Because the person interviewing him just dropped out and it's in a week. Can you do it, please? I said, yeah, easy. Of course I can. Absolutely. I love interviews. And I've maybe done one or two at that time. So I very hurriedly had to write these questions, read the book and write the questions. But interviewing Michael is just packed. It's like a rock star. It's this packed house. And I've interviewed a couple of authors like that now, like Trent Dalton's like that. Jane was like that. There's a few who are like, you feel like you're almost in the way of the crowd. Like, hang on, no, I'm asking the questions, guys. I'm here. I got to ask these questions. But Michael had like fans wearing shirts, and the line was out the door, but he bought a copy of Snake Island, which was really kind of him. He's very nice.
That's fantastic. I mean, he's appearing at the Brisbane Writers Festival this year.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that. Yeah,
I've got my ticket already.
Oh, awesome! He's great. He's really, really cool. And how cool is it? Like, so when you do the lead into these interviews, you'll have like a couple of minutes, or 10 to 15 minutes to set up. But I just got to shoot the shit with Michael Connolly. It's very fun, and it's just you learn very quickly. These are just very ordinary people who have got a real gift. Yeah.
And I was going to ask you, particularly for those high-profile authors that you've interviewed, and you said you're feeling a bit nervous. How do you prepare for those? You've got to read the book. You've got to identify pertinent questions, make it conversational, know a bit about their background.
I think that a lot of the different things that I've had in my life have uniquely prepared me to do public speaking and public interviews, where I feel comfortable pausing and thinking and listening. I think one of the biggest things to do as an interviewer is to listen. And you guys are sounds stupid, doing a great job.
Yeah, actually, I just dozed off. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. No, but this idea of like listening and responding meaningfully, and it's okay to talk about stuff that you find interesting. It's the same with writing. Like, if you're talking about things that you find particularly interesting and rabbit holes, like you're like, oh, that's interesting. Can we talk about that and unpack that a bit more? If you can remove the production of it So I'm again, it's a thing I keep coming back to. I hate feeling like I'm on a pedestal, and I hate feeling like there's this, like I have to walk out onto this spot and then stand this certain position, and then the light will fall, and then I'll say this exact phrase, and then out will come like I hate that sort of thing. And it's not the music I like either. Like I don't like big showy Taylor Swift and Pink sort of dance numbers with choreography. I hate it. Just give me rock and roll, guys with guitars spontaneously stage diving. That's what I like. One thing I do, which is a trick I learned from the guy from Hot Ones. I think his name's Sean. I don't know whether you've watched Hot Ones. You know, not familiar. So it's this really fun show. Essentially interviews celebrities, and on the board they have 10 chicken wings, and then they have hot sauces, and the hot sauce Scoville units slowly go up. So while he's asking these deep probing questions, they're sweating and crying, and like it's a great concept.
Yeah.
But he's often heralded as like a really brilliant interviewer. And one thing I think he does is that he'll always do research enough to find the thing that makes his subject or his interviewee come alive. And if you can have that sprinkled into one of your first questions, you're off to the races. And that's what I did with Michael. So the very first question, I said, Michael, listen, I'm a big fan, and I have to use this opportunity to ask a question of you that I've had for years. So, you know, back in 2002, when you published 9 Dragons, so specifically in chapter 17 in 9, like I went down this really specific thing because he killed Maddie. Was Maddie? No, the wife's name. I forget the name of the wife. Harry's wife.
Yeah.
Maddie's the daughter. Anyway.
Maddie's the daughter, yeah.
Yeah. So I forget the wife's name. But anyway, I had to ask him about the decision to kill his wife. Sorry, spoiler alert for a 2-decade-old. Well, my bad. But that was my way of sort of nudging at him and like, hey, you're in a safe hands here because I really love what you do. And I could see him sort of light up, or like, I've never been asked that before. And from there, it was just really, it's to put him at ease. And so if you can have a couple of questions where, tell us about your tattoos. Tell us about this charity that you've been working for. Tell us about that. The thing that makes them spark up, and then the rest of the interview is a lot easier.
Cool. Yeah, I guess that's the key, isn't it? Finding that point of interest where if you can see that suddenly the person is lifting with their enthusiasm and passion and talk about a certain topic, you can unpack that further.
Yeah, and it's being aware of the crowd as well. You know, I've been on panels where I'm answering a question, and while I'm answering it, I'm like, this is boring. Like, everyone in this crowd, like, I don't know how anyone's paying attention. Like, we're all being boring. This is a boring topic. Like, it's okay to add a little levity, have a little bit of fun, and to tell a story or two. People love, of course they do. We love stories. And sometimes at festivals and things like that, a lot of the talk can become very intellectual, and it can become very, you know, I'll use the word pretentious. At least it feels that way to me. And so I'll often make an effort to, hey, just guys, settle down. We're all humans here. We're just having a chat. We don't know more than anyone else in this crowd. Like, try to bring us down a little bit. That's my thing.
Have you interviewed Candace Fox?
You know, it's funny. No. And I am interviewing her this month. Oh, sorry, in April. Yeah, I am interviewing her in Brisbane Square Library. I have a date. Hang on, I can even get you the date. I don't know when this podcast's going out. No, I've chatted with Candace heaps of times. We've hung out at festivals, and she's lovely and wild and just a really fun person. But I am interviewing. Sorry, I'll get the date.
Now, just while you're looking, I'll do a bit of tap dancing while you're looking at that, because I got to see Candace Fox at the Redcliffe Library. Her and Gary Disher were both doing
that's cool.
sessions.
What a get.
And I've probably read more of Gary Disher's books than I have Candace's, because the way Gary writes is very Australiana, a police officer in a rural town. Sort of there's a lot of similarities to some of the stories that I write. And his writing is just off the charts good. And I just, use him as a mentor to try and strive to be half as good as Gary Disher. But they both did independent sessions, and Candace Fox was an absolute hoot. She was funny. She's engaging. She was talking about when she first met James Patterson, and how she was at a cocktail party and she just
Yeah.
was brazenly went up and said to her, you need to write with me. We need to co-author a book. And for telling stories, and the whole crowd was just laughing the whole time. Just highly intelligent, funny, amazing person.
Yeah, and see that like she's got the crowd. Like it's funny, hey, because as authors we are often, a lot of us are very introverted. I feel like I am introverted, but I've learned how to, as a, all I do every day is public performance for crowds that don't really want me to be there to perform, and I have to convince them. So
The
if you
scourge of a
can,
teacher.
yeah, if you can work that bone, like if you can, Candace is brilliant at that stuff.